playing Origin Form Palkia V-Star. We've heard him a couple days ago. He was running around frantically trying to find some really interesting cards. He was looking for some Thievals and Nickets, but I think he's back down on that one. I think he was trying to create a rogue archetype, but instead he's going for Old Faithful Origin Form Palkia V-Star. And against him we have Wayne Weipeng Tan, and he's also going to be playing a variant of Origin Form Palkia V-Star, but this time adding in that Ice Rider Calyrex.
Yeah, so we've got lots of Palkia here. We've got a pure Palkia and a Palkia Ice Rider, and it looks like we are off with day 2 of the Pokemon Trading Card Game World Championships, and our defending champion, Henry Brand, does look like he's going to be taking the first turn here.
Has a Sobble to kick things off, also a Water Energy. I don't know if he has any other actions. I can't see any Bull Search for basics. Looks like he's going to try and thin his deck with an Evolution Incense here. Obviously not usable on that first turn. You cannot evolve, but he's just going to look through his prize cards, of course. Always important to take the time to do so. And I'm not sure if he has any actions beyond this, unfortunately. I didn't see any way to get a Origin Form Palkia V down.
No, I think there's a Capacious Bucket which could be played, but it's not going to do you much good. I mean, I suppose the theory here essentially is you're fairly sure your opponent isn't playing any hand disruption, and looking at Wayne's deck, we've literally just got one Roxanne, which you can't play at this stage of the game anyway. So if you search it out now, you've got it ready for next turn, and then there's one fewer card you don't want to draw, which slightly increases the chance that you're going to draw those cards you do want to draw. It's very small margins, but these are the kind of things that make the difference. You don't want to do this, but sometimes you kind of got to.
Yeah, Henry really is taking his time here. He actually is playing, I believe, a gold copy of Path of the Peak as well in his own deck list. So that's something that you could get online as well with that code. But is just going to grab a Drizzile for the following turn. The good news is he's up against an archetype that can't really pressurize this Sobble on the first turn of the game. So he should be in the clear here with just a Sobble and pass.
Not a good start, but it's not a terrifying start. You'll be all right. I mean, Wayne here, we're starting off with an Irida, and I think we're going to see probably what we've seen quite a lot here. We're probably going to see a Battle VIP pass, you would imagine, to go and get those basics out. I think we've already gone and spotted a Manaphy. Of course, we know in these decks that Radiant Greninja puts so much pressure on your bench that getting that Manaphy, it's not crucial this turn. There will not be a Radiant Greninja for Henry next turn. But it's one of those things you want to establish while you've got the opportunity.
And Irida is the dream. You can grab a water Pokemon from your deck, as well as any item card. And this is so essential for the Palkia V-Star archetype, where you are trying to fill your board up with as many Pokemon as possible. I think in mirror match situations, it can get a little bit more interesting, where you try and do as much damage as possible to the opponent while staying out of range of their own damage. So we might see a little bit of interesting tricks up both players' sleeves here to stay out of range of opposing subspace swell attacks. But when your opponent has a slow start with Sobble, you really do want to capitalize on that and get as many Pokemon onto the field as possible. If they already have access to a turn 2 Drizzile, it could easily just be an additional basic alongside this Battle VIP pass.
Yeah, there we go. So we've got yourself the Palkia and then the Battle VIP pass, which is going to be coming down. 2 more basics. You've got to imagine there's going to be at least 1 more Sobble. Does look like we're going for the Ice Rider Calyrex V here, because of course Wayne is playing both of these attackers in the deck, and that does give you options. An Ice Rider can actually get that one-hit KO onto Palkia with a choice belt, which can be important.
Yeah, it's much less worried about how wide the opponent goes. You can't play around Ice Rider's damage. It's just there. It can just hit that 250 so easily, and it's a real threat for that turn 2. There's going to be more Origin Form Palkias, which is an interesting one. Oftentimes you see the Radiant Greninja get into the mix as quickly as possible. I wonder what Wayne's strategy is here. Could be looking to keep calling to fill the remainder of his bench up to possibly end his turn.
That absolutely is an option. At the moment, we got attackers, but we don't have those support Pokemon. We're expecting Sobble, Radiant Greninja, and it looks like we've actually got 3 attackers and 2 Sobble out. So, and I like the energy onto the Ice Rider, because next turn that means evolution, attach, and then you can just start KOing straight away. So I do like that. I do worry a little bit. We got 2 Sobble, no Radiant Greninja, but that's going to be enough for a couple of turns at least.
Yeah, I always like threatening that Radiant Greninja, and could have drawn a couple additional cards knowing that you like to use that Star Portal as quickly as possible, but keeping the option available for later on in the game is always interesting, and again makes Henry play slightly differently, who's agonizing over one shady deal here.
Yeah, and that is it. You've got defending world champion, round 1, on stream, full of confidence. This is not the way you want to start the game. It does look like Henry's going for an Irida here. Or, yeah, we do see an Irida, which is going to grab a level ball and a Pokemon. The problem is, this is not the same as it is on turn 1, where you get that battle VIP pass. It basically means you're getting 2 Pokemon rather than 3. That's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a one-time deal, the battle VIP pass. The effect is so powerful on that first turn of the game, but it does have the massive drawback, unfortunately. Henry is only playing 1 copy of that battle VIP pass, so it's much more likely to achieve it via an Irida when you're the player going second. So it's not something he is completely reliant on, but is no longer able to access that card. Is going to simply level ball for a backup Sobble. And I don't think he's got anything else to do here. Maybe a keep calling play here. No, simply passing and protecting his Drizzile for the following turn, and it's down to Wayne to see if we can have aggressive sparks flying here with a KO on the 1 Palkia in play for Henry.
We've already got the Ice Rider Calyrex V Max as an energy enhancer. Wayne's got the attack if there's some kind of pivoting option, but we do see a Drizzile there going up, could grab a scoop up net, which will allow you to both pivot out of the active and then evolve the bent Sobble to get a second Shady Dealings. That does look like what Wayne's going for here, and it's a play we've seen a million times before. It's not a huge surprise. And we are going to see that early pressure from the Ice Rider Calyrex. And I kind of like this because it's a very good attacker. You don't need to discard the energy to get small KOs, and you can just sit there and start rocking from turn 1. And we do see Boss's orders, so we might see a bigger KO here.
I mean, this, yeah, and Henry knows.
Oh, no! That was quick.
Henry not wasting any time. He knows that he is very behind. I really like swallowing your pride when you are behind in a game like this, because Henry wants to give himself maximum opportunity to win 2 games. He has the advantage in the second game. He gets to choose to begin at the very least, and his start was far from ideal. The Ice Rider Calyrex has a huge amount of hit points. Henry, although he had the option to do a ton of Shady Deals, wouldn't really have been able to launch anything meaningful in terms of an attack. I believe he doesn't even play the Raihan, so there was no option to even attack with an Inteleon, for example, that turn. So he had really nothing going for him. That payment of retreat may be costing him that little bit, because I think you have to assume when you only put 1 Origin Form Palkia down, the opponent will always look to chase it. Yeah. But potentially Henry was just saying that if he had access to Inteleon, simply dealing would have been enough, but kind of taking that hedge that you can avoid a boss's orders for return with a low hand size, but Wayne had exactly the pieces he required.
Yeah, unfortunately sometimes, and I do kind of like this, because yes, Day 2 is a different tournament, but you still need a very, very good record to make it up to the top cut of the tournament. You don't want to be taking a round 1 tie, and that's what happens when you end up, you know, taking a slow loss game 1, and then you fight back game 2, and then time runs out and boom, you've got a tie.
Right.
We've still got 43 minutes left, and we're going into game 2. This is basically Henry's way of saying, I'm confident about this matchup, because if you're not confident, you don't mind losing a long game 1 and going for the draw. Scooping that quickly, conceding that quickly, you're going for the win.
Yeah, and wins are obviously far more valuable. The amount of match points required to make it into that top 8 record is huge. Some really awkward prize cards going on.
2 Sobble and 2 Quick Ball for Henry. That is going to hurt the early turns.
He's just drawn 1 off the top, which I think is saving his otherwise awful hand.
Oh, he started
Zigzagoon. Yeah. Finally does get that Quick Ball, though, so he can at least get 1 Pokemon down, but it looks like if he is going for a Palkia, he's not going to have any accompanying Sobble.
No, that is very bad. That's such a harsh decision. You can either go for a Sobble, but then we're in the position we were in game 1 where you've got no attackers,
right,
or you go for the Palkia, but then you are really putting yourself in an awkward position in terms of, do you actually have any draw next turn, or are you basically in top deck mode?
Looks like it's a Nessa hitting the discard pile with this Quick Ball. No real easy choice there either. And Henry is again going to fan out his deck, have a look at what is prized. I don't think he's going to be too happy about the outcome, but he at least does play Hisuian Heavy Ball to maybe cherry pick one of those Sobble later. Not something that he can do right now, but it looks like he's just sat on such an awkward hand that he is thinking really hard about this Origin Form Palkia versus Sobble.
You see him flicking him at the front of the deck there.
I mean, tempo's a thing, but you put yourself immediately into top deck mode, which is a horrible feeling to have in the pit of your stomach when you've already just dropped a game.
It's not ideal. And let's be clear, like, when you're a player of Henry's caliber, this isn't like a deck that Henry's just picked up and thought, Palkia's good, anyone can play that. This is a list that will have been tested and tested and tested and won game after game and set up consistently game after game. Oh.
He doesn't know. Yeah, he's going to go for the Sobble. He had the lucky dip approach of the Radiant Greninja, which was option number 3 coming to his head.
I noticed that.
Yeah, but he is going to opt for Sobble. It means he's going to have really poor tempo at his disposal. Even if you do attach an energy to that Sobble, it's not going to be attacking for a while. But he just has nothing else going for him, unfortunately.
No, there's a Palkia V-Star, there's an Evolution Incense, there's an Energy.
Even playing this Water Energy means that it ruins top decks for Radiant Greninja in future. So he's going to have it as a pivot option potentially, but it doesn't feel great.
It really doesn't feel great at all. And Wayne's in a very similar position to game 1. If he can just be setting up preferably the Ice Rider here, that would be, but we do see an energy on the Sobble, so Wayne's not got much going on. It might just be a keep calling, you know. Yeah, it is.
It's a big break for Henry, where Wayne is unable to get any of his 2 prize basic Pokemon into play. Wayne is once again going to take a beat to check his own prize cards here. Whilst also getting the Rapid Strike Sobbles out of the deck. Keep Calling is a big reason why this Inteleon engine is so preferred, because even when you have an awful start like this, all you require is an energy card to still be in the game and still getting your engine going.
Yeah, it's always a nice option. I do like with the Ice Rider that you're not relying on your opponent having a big bench in order to get the KOs. We saw that in game 1. So you can keep calling, of course. Keep Calling will only get you your Rapid Strike Pokemon, so they're really good for Sobble. Right. They're not so good for your attackers. Your Palkia, your Ice Rider, unfortunately, they're not going to be got here. So both players getting Sobble, but not actually, unfortunately, being able to get any attackers, and that is... It's not a great board from either of them right now.
A huge sigh of relief for Henry, who went the safer route, I guess you could say, by grabbing an option 2 Drizzle and still be in the game the following turn. So is still fighting on here and will be effectively still going first. And looks like the top deck wasn't ideal for him, so it will be a Shady Deal. I imagine, again, Irida is going to be the play, so he can try and get some additional basics down. It's usually going to be the go-to here, so that he can start finally threatening some Origin Form Palkia Vs.
Yeah, you need to get those Palkia out as soon as you can. I mean, Henry is very much on the back foot here. Needs to try and force a game 3. That concession in game 1 was a big deal. Gave enough time to actually, you know, win 2 games. But the problem with that is you've actually got to go and win those 2 games. So we've got the Shady Dealing for the Irida here. And we're probably going to see a very similar thing to what we saw turn 2 from Henry last game. Or are we?
Yeah, looking at a Capacious Bucket as well as a Palkia. I think also Palkia Hisuian Heavy is another great choice here.
Yeah.
To have another Sobble for the following turn. Both very reasonable choices here. The Level Ball I kind of like the least because it takes your last Sobble out of the deck rather than, you know, just grabbing the Hisuian. They're both kind of freebies. But regardless, getting a Sobble down is still going to enable him to once again unlock his hand next turn.
It absolutely is, but there's no energy. You talked about putting the energy on the Galarian Zigzagoon last turn, because he's got Palkia, Origin Form Palkia V-Star in hand.
Yeah.
So if he had attached last turn, but then there isn't a second energy for this turn, so I suppose it's all a moot point in the end. Those attackers just aren't coming out.
No, but I think the good news is next turn he can once again Irida, and then he finally goes for Radiant Greninja plus Capacious Bucket. And then he can start getting some into the discard pile. He can pay retreat, get rid of another one, and he's likely launching a Subspace Swell on the next turn. Wayne here has his first Shady Deal, and again is going to have a think. It's down to him now to try and get multiple 2-prize Pokemon into play, because that now the shoe's on the other foot. Henry's the one threatening potential Gust on the next turn.
Yep, absolutely. And the fact of the matter is that, sure, you need to have bench Pokemon to really activate Palkia's damage, but you know what? When you've got a 60 HP Sobble in the active, you don't need to do that much damage at all. So Henry is starting to threaten KOs, and I think you're right. It's going to be that V-Star power to get the energy on. It's not really what you want to do, but it's certainly not the end of the world. If it gets you that energy, if it gets you those early attacks and puts you ahead in the game with KOs, you would rather save it for a lovely tech attack with your Radiant Greninja.
Sure.
But you know what? If you got to do it, you got to do it.
We are going to see an Irida here. I think because there's already a Water Energy established on the Sobble, I'd like to see some more Drizzle dancing going on so that you have the threat of an Inteleon potentially, even if this Sobble is knocked out. But regardless, we're going to see the quick ball grabbed. As we said, it's really important to get not one, but two, ideally, two prize Pokemon established here, so you can be threatening that much higher damage output threshold.
Yeah, and we do not want to repeat for Wayne what happened to Henry last game, which is, hey, I've got an attacker. Oh, wait, no, I don't. False alarm. You've just KO'd it, and then you end up conceding the game because actually you need some attackers at some point to win. So we do have a Capacious Bucket coming out here. We've got one Ice Rider Calyrex V on the bench, which is lovely. And it looks like, yeah, we actually saw the Capacious Bucket to grab the energy so that one of those energy could be used as fodder for the Quick Ball. And then obviously you can then bring it back with Palkia's V-Star power in the future. So nice little bit of sequencing on show there.
Yeah, great combination. You might also have to debate whether or not to put this Manaphy down as your final bench space. Because there's always a threat of a Radiant Greninja coming down and taking two prize cards on one prize Pokemon. Even taking out something like the Drizzle and putting prep damage on the Ice Rider Calyrex can be a strong play as well for Henry.
Yeah, that absolutely could, of course. As much as I'm saying, you know, use a V-Star power to get the Palkia going, what you can actually do is use a V-Star power to get your Radiant Greninja, attach for turn, and save your Palkia until next turn, and just have that two prize turn. So that Manaphy is sneaky important. Whenever there's a Radiant Greninja, even if it's not on the board, if it's at all threatening, you've got to get that Manaphy.
Ooh, wow, and Wayne did not bench their Manaphy here. No bench protection around, so it does open more avenues for Henry now.
Do have to discard the energy to get there, though, so there's a few steps that Henry's going to have to go through. The play is potentially there, but there's a few steps before we actually make it.
There's potentially a lot of Shady Deals here, though. He could Shady Deal for Irida, you can grab Bucket Radiant Greninja, or you can grab the Inteleon as well as Irida. Sorry, you can grab the Irida and grab Shady Dealings and Inteleon, which then enables you to find other avenues toward the Radiant Greninja and draw even more cards. So there's a lot of deals on offer here, and I think because there's no bench protection, the Radiant Greninja certainly seems like the strongest play available to Henry.
I think if you think you can confidently get all the parts, if you think you can get the energy in the discard, get the V-Star power off, then yes, I absolutely agree. I think being able to either take two prizes or take a prize while softening up one of those bigger two-prize Pokemon, I love that play. And I think that's how Henry kind of gets back into it in game two. So we do have an Irida coming down here.
Yeah, I'm almost certain Capacious Bucket is the item card. And it's either going to be the Shady Dealing Inteleon, or it's going to be the Radiant Greninja. And possibly his one copy of Shady Dealing Inteleon in the prize cards. I remember having some awkward ones in there. But the Bucket is going to be played alongside this Radiant Greninja. And I think he can get there just by simply retreating the Zigzagoon using one concealed card. And if he has to spend his turn attachment, he can to get the three going. It's not ideal. You'd prefer to store some energies elsewhere because it kind of commits you to Melanie later on. But I think if needs must, he can still make this play.
And Melanie is always an option, even if you don't really want to do it. The fact that Melanie's there is good. Because the thing is, I believe there's only Boss's Orders as Gusting in Henry's deck. Is there any cross-switcher in there?
Yeah, no cross-switchers.
So that means that having played the Irida, if you are going down a Palkia attacking route this turn, you've got to just KO the Sobble, and then Wayne is getting the first hit on a two-prize Pokemon. So I think as soon as you play the Irida and you resign yourself to not having any Gusting, you've got to try and go for the Greninja play.
Yeah, we're going to see the retreat.
There we go.
And I think it's as good as it gets as long as you're not using that Boss's Orders, and his hand just certainly wasn't prepped for it. It's not the maximum value from the Star Portal, but it's going to be enough to still launch a very powerful attack and set up some strong damage onto the Ice Rider, which I think is certainly going to be his line here, because you can see the prize map already panning out, where there's going to be a one prize knocked out here, and then you are going to take a three prize knockout onto the Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX, or deny it from coming into play at all. And then you can also try and find your way of knocking out a Origin Form Palkia V or V-Star.
Yeah, that seems to be the way to get 6 prizes quite nicely here. So Henry has navigated this game too absolutely beautifully. Radiant Greninja is such a huge advantage. If you're able to play it and you're able to get the energy on like you are in a Palkia deck, it is such a huge advantage. And we do see a quick shooting Inteleon coming out here.
I like this a lot as well, because if you're going to already be doing prep damage onto the Ice Rider, you can also start pinging down the Palkia as well. Or vice versa. He could just be going even more aggressive onto the Ice Rider. Oh, he's going to take the two-prize route here. So he's attacking on both fronts. This means that Wayne, if he chooses to not evolve his Ice Rider, it doesn't really matter anymore, because you can sort of hold off that free prize turn for as long as possible, and then you get to the ultra late game and then you do evolve up. So now Henry is staying on the 2-2-2 prize map, but is also going to pepper up that Ice Rider.
I kind of like that, because it's not just taking the 2 prizes, it's taking the options off the board.
Sure.
That Drizzle could have become an Inteleon, that Sobble could have become a Drizzle, so now, instead of potentially 4 Shady Dealings or 4 trainer cards, we've now got potentially 1.
Yeah.
That is a huge difference in terms of being able to get what you need to carry on the game, so there's still a potential, you know, that Sobble can just manually retreat. You only need an Energy and an Ice Rider VMAX or a Palkia V-Star to get an attack this turn. There's going to be an attack, but it's still not the same kind of turn that you could have had before.
Yeah, and I really don't see many strong option for Wayne here. He's played the Melanie. There's no water energy currently in the discard pile. He can turn attach, pay retreat, and just take a 1 prize knockout. Doesn't feel great.
Really doesn't. That's not what you're looking for. I mean, I suppose getting Radiant Greninja off the board is quite nice just to stop them drawing cards. And, you know, there is still, when there's 1 energy on there, attachment for the turn Melanie does give another option for it. So I like getting rid of it, but I'm also well aware that it's just, when you've already given up 2 prizes and your board's not looking great, it's not doing enough. It doesn't feel like it's doing enough anyway.
Here is the Evolution Incense. I imagine we're going to be seeing a Shady Deal here. Only plays 2 copies of Cross Switcher, doesn't have either of them in hand, so he's certainly going to be limited to attacking the active Pokemon here. And it's not something you really want to be doing in this position, but I don't see a way that you can simply pass here. You fall too far behind in the prize race, so it's not ideal, but it's got to be what Wayne still looks for this turn.
And if I'm Henry and my Radiant Greninja is still there at the end of this turn, then I'm looking to use Melanie and do what I kind of could have done last turn. Take out the Drizzle and get some prep damage on one of those bigger Pokemon. I think that would be an excellent play. So if I'm Henry, I would love it if my Radiant Greninja wasn't KO'd this turn.
Yeah, the Melanie limited to the Origin Form Palkia, of course.
Oh, of course it is. I said that yesterday as well, Joe.
It's that sneaky rule box on it.
It's that sneaky rule box. It gets me every time. But it's still something that you can attack with a Palkia this turn.
Yeah.
And then, you know, save it, get a Radiant Greninja energy in the future. It's still an attack that can come out, but you're right, it would have to be 1 turn later.
And Wayne doesn't really know what to Shady Deal for here. I think he's evolving into the Drizzle mostly because he's holding an Inteleon in hand regardless. So he just wants to have more deals on the future turn. So he's just going to elect to grab an Ultra Ball here. Just again, maybe a play for a future turn, but we will likely see a retreat here and a response KO with the Origin Form Palkia V-Star here. He's kept a very limited bench. I think that's one of the most disciplined things he could do this turn.
And there is an opportunity here to just keep a nice small bench, and then your Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX becomes this huge HP monster that's hard to KO and can one-hit KO. And that is a big difference between these 2 Pokemon. Palkia cannot one-hit KO Ice Rider Calyrex. Ice Rider Calyrex can one-hit KO Palkia. It needs a choice belt, but it's not that difficult to actually pull off. So I like the Wayne's got that for the next couple of turns. And we saw, before he benched the Palkia, we saw the finger coming out, counting the damage here.
You good old 2 times table. It's essential here right now because that is all parts of the subspace swell. It's a 2-way street. Both of them are using this attack. So as wide as they go to increase their own damage, it also helps their opponent. And I believe the Shady Dealing Inteleon was the grab from Henry's prize cards here, which really unlocks his turn.
Yeah, it's being able to grab any 2 trainer cards from your deck. It looks like we are going Capacious Bucket and a Melanie here, which I like very much indeed. Get some more energy on the board, or it might be a Quick Ball and a Melanie instead. Either way, getting more energy on the board, building up backup attackers for the future is a really important thing to do. As it stands at the moment, there isn't much going on in terms of future attackers, but it looks like that's what we're going to be getting here. So we can Melanie onto the Palkia, then you can get an energy on there for your turn, and then we can start setting up for the future.
Yeah, Henry absolutely is needing to attack with his 2 prize Pokemon from here on out. He's already sacrificed that 1 prize Radiant Greninja, so you want to give as much bulk as possible for Wayne to get through from here on, as the Melanie is going to come and get 3 cards. And we're looking to see if there's even any fodder here. His hand is so strong that he doesn't have many good discards to get another Palkia down.
No, that is an awkward problem to have. My hand's so good I can't discard any of them. But you're right, because all Wayne actually needs to get a KO on this Palkia is energy, Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX choice belt. And bearing in mind, we're pretty sure there's going to be an Inteleon Shady Dealings coming. So Wayne has got a not too difficult route to get the KO next turn if he wants it. That means Henry has to have another Pokemon getting ready to come out and attack next turn.
And what does Henry value the least here? He's got one of his 2 boss's orders has had to hit the discard pile. It's not ideal at all. But I think the way he's mapped out his prize cards, it makes a lot of sense here. So it is going to have to be sacrificed in order to find a Palkia. I think in many ways he was hoping to find a way worse card from his 3 cards from Melanie, just for some easy decisions, but not coming. But still, he is able to find an Origin Form Palkia V. Is debating this Sobble in addition, again, giving you more damage with the Subspace Swell. He's also got quick shooting to deliberate over.
Yeah, I love that quick shoot and just that free 2 damage counts on anywhere, anytime you like. It's quite important sometimes to get over the hump. You know, V-Maxes might give up an extra prize compared to V-Star, but they also have quite a lot more HP. You're looking at kind of around 340 rather than 280, and that could be a pretty big difference. So just picking that little bit of damage can make a difference. Now we do, Henry's just asking about hand size here. We do see the Sobble coming down, or is it coming down?
Yeah,
it is coming down.
So quick shooting onto the active position before announcing a Subspace Swell attack. So thanks to his own bench, that's 160 plus 60 from Wayne's bench Pokemon. So it's getting a good bit of prep here. I don't think it's ideal math alongside quick shooting, so I think Henry is looking to try and weave in a boss's orders on the next turn to try and make the math work out with multiple quick shooting over a few turns.
Yeah, I mean, all it's going to take is 2 quick shooting in order to actually get the KO here. And there is always a possibility of, if there's a Drizzile next turn, then you can double quick shooting one turn, where you quick shooting, then you scoop up net, and then you evolve a different Drizzile and get a second use of that same ability. It's only going to take 2 quick shootings to get the KO. But yeah, from now on, it's going to be gusting, because this is awkward for Wayne, because Wayne kind of wants to try and retreat and get a KO with Ice Rider Calyrex V Max, but you don't want to leave a Pokemon on the bench to be quick shooting over 2 turns.
Exactly.
So you kind of want to leave it in the active. If it's going to get KO'd, you might as well make your opponent use their attack.
Yeah, the alternative is to use some of his damage modifiers, eyeing up Leon and Choice Belt right now for exactly that purpose. Force Henry to push the Origin Form Palkia out the way and give him more work to do, whilst also taking a knockout. So I really like this idea of bringing the Choice Belt and Leon to the top, because this is going to be great ways for him to maintain a fairly low bench size for another couple turns, try and make it as awkward for Henry, who, as you said, isn't playing a cross-switcher at all, so is very limited in the opportunities to actually use boss's orders.
And one of those 2 boss's orders has gone and hit the discard pile, so the gusting here is not going to be, it's not going to be easy for Henry at all. So Wayne is quite a lot of good stuff in his hand at this stage. There are decisions to be made. There's an Ultra Ball he's mulling over here, just deciding, you know, do you need another bench Pokemon? Do you want to try and evolve that? You know, one of his bench 2 prizes. But it looks like there's a Manaphy in hand.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty critical turn, because Wayne knows by taking this 2 prize knockout, he's then falling in range of potential Roxanne as well. So I think he's thinking the best way is to thin his hand, the best way is to have a robust board state here to not get disrupted.
Indeed, and if I'm Wayne, I'm thinking, well, I kind of want to put my Choice Belt down this turn so it's ready for the future. What if my opponent's got a way to get rid of it? What if they've got that field blower? Do I want to take that risk?
And eyeing up benching another Pokemon here, it would allow him to stash the Choice Belt on the bench and just manually play the Leon as the supporter for turn instead, where you get to keep those threats all over the place. So you can see why Wayne is thinking about this so much.
Yeah, it's an awkward decision, and you've got to be thinking about Roxanne nowadays. As soon as you go down to 3 or fewer prize cards remaining, you know you're in range of Roxanne, and that puts you at a 2-card hand, and you don't want to be at a 2-card hand, not unless you've got something like a Genesect on board, like we saw from the Mew players. Mew players don't care about Roxanne unless it also comes with a path to the peak. But Palkia players do, because you've got to draw something like a Shady Dealings, although, is that a... There's nothing actually ready to evolve in Shady Dealings next turn.
No, that's the worry. That's why Wayne is agonizing over a potential Ultra Ball here. Might end up having to just discard the Leon that he's just searched out. Instead is going to Melanie, trying to give himself some easier discards with his own Ultra Ball that he found with Shady Dealings a few turns earlier.
Yeah, I kind of like this. It's so weird when you're looking for bad cards, so you don't have to discard good cards. But sometimes that's the way we go. So we've got the Ultra Ball there. Gets rid of Ice Rider. You're not going to need that. Gets rid of Quick Ball, which you could use to get a Sobble if there's one still in deck.
Yeah, a bit of a strange one. I guess you want to get rid of more cards because you then don't want Quick Ball on a future turn. Is eyeing up a V-Max here. Is it because they've got too many prize Sobble right now?
Might be. I'm not seeing a Sobble as we go for... Oh, here's a good look at the deck. Right, so we're having a look through. There's a Drizzile. There's a... I don't think there's a Sobble left in deck. I think that's the reason.
an alternative reason is that he still hasn't used his V-Star power and wants to have that available on the next turn as best he can. So just evolving up into that Palkia, a pretty strong option. It gives, again, Henry a more difficult time of having a multiple prize turn next turn.
Yeah, and that's always a good thing you want to be trying to do. So we've got the Palkia, we've got the Choice Bout, we've got lots of bench Pokemon.
Not a KO, though.
Not a KO. As soon as you see them reaching for dice rather than discarding the Pokemon, you know it's not getting KO'd. We've got... Oh!
Yeah, we're just shy.
That's 270,
yeah.
Joe. That is so close.
And Wayne decided to do this because he opted to discard an Ice Rider V. So he was well aware that he was not quite reaching that KO. He does play his own copy of Quick Shooting Inteleon, I believe. So it's something he can look towards.
Yeah, there is one in there. One of the other options, which is a bit more roundabout, Henry's got a full bench with no mana fee, so you could get that energy onto Inteleon, maybe using the V-Star power, and that residual 20 damage from Inteleon's attack could then be the thing that takes out a Palkia. It's again, it's a bit of a round-the-houses way of doing things, but the point is, Wayne has got multiple different ways that that extra 10 damage could be dealt.
For Henry, then, it's finally an opportunity to use this boss's orders. I think he's certainly going to do that. He's eyed up the Ice Rider straight away. And can he accompany this with anything else? The Path of the Peak is also very strong here because Wayne is yet to use his own V-Star power. I'm just checking to see how many... I don't know why that dice is being rolled there. But we are going to see the Hisuian Heavy Ball for Henry. I think this is just mostly thinning for him. It still has a Sobble accessible, but his board is currently full. And with so many bench Pokemon around, it's going to be a huge amount of damage for Origin Form Palkia here.
And one of the things Henry's done beautifully here is by putting that 20 damage on from the quick shooting onto the benched Palkia this turn after a gusting, it means that it doesn't matter anymore. Next turn, that Palkia goes down to a quick shooting. Active bench doesn't matter.
Oh.
Henry is not going to have to attack into it, but what have we got here?
Did Henry opt to use the quick shooting? He did, right?
He did,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
He did use it a minute ago. It's on the board.
Yeah, we're good. Okay. Huge chunk of damage coming into this Ice Rider.
And Path to the Peak.
Yeah, that's huge as well because it's denying Wayne's options to use their own Star Portal here. Wayne is, I believe, clutching onto a Stadium card, but it's exactly what Henry wants to do. And he's, again, Henry's doing a really good job of staying out of Roxanne range himself.
Yeah, no, I love this. You're not really that worried about Roxanne yet. You've got a Palkia, which is just about to be KO'd. The thing is, Henry can win the game next turn. If Henry's able to get a KO on a Palkia V-Star, or indeed just the Ice Rider, which is heavily damaged, combined with that quick shooting, Henry's actually pretty much got game on board next turn. So Wayne needs to do quite a lot here. He needs to try and take out that Palkia. But honestly, I'm loving Henry's position here because Wayne's not winning the game this turn. And all Henry needs is to KO the Ice Rider and use quick shooting, and that's the game. But we know Henry's out of gusting.
Yeah.
So that Ice Rider can't be in the active.
No, it has to move out the way, and I think even something like attacking with Manaphy here is actually the strongest choice Wayne could go for. It gets just enough to do 20 damage. The Hisuian Heavy Ball, I don't know what's happening. Oh, I'm shuffling some prize cards with the Hisuian Heavy. That makes sense. The Sobbler's getting picked up. But yeah, I would love to see a Manaphy attack here, to be honest with you.
The Rain Splash to KO 2 prize Origin Form Palkia V-Star. That would be amazing.
I think it's the smartest play, honestly, looking at the board state. And we know that 2 bosses' orders have been spent, and Wayne is likely going to look at the discard pile at some point, or is keeping track of it at least.
Yeah, I mean, at this stage in the game, you know that Palkia's not probably going to be playing 3 or 4. And you've got to think, if they were playing Cross-Switcher, you'd have seen one of them by now.
Yeah.
It's unusual that all 4 of them are staying hidden. And you don't play Cross-Switcher unless you're playing a 4-off. So that's information that you can use. So you don't know Henry's out of gusting, but from context and normal deck lists, you can kind of figure it out. So we do see the retreat. Obviously, leaving that active would literally lose Wayne the game, and that would be a bad thing. So it looks like what we've got here is the Inteleon coming active,
right,
which means we've got to see the V-Star power in. Yeah, here we go, to actually get the energy on. Do we have any kind of gusting or escape rope? You don't really want to attack into the Palkia. You want to get it to the bench. This is what I was talking about last turn. Do 100 damage and KO it with the residual 20. That's what you want to do.
That would have been the dream scenario, but it's simply going to be an Aqua Bullet into the active. At least you get 20 damage onto the benched V-Star. It's slightly better than Rain Splash, I guess you could say, but really not by much. And you are threatening your own Inteleon here and had to spend your V-Star power. But now there's no energy on the benched Ice Rider because there's just so few that were rooting around the discard pile. That Palkia that's about to get KO'd by quick shooting is definitely going to lose all of its energy. So Wayne is locking himself into Melanieing for future turns, and that means no hand disruption going Henry's way.
Yeah, and if there's no hand disruption, you can let your opponent just run away with it. Speaking of hand disruption, here comes Roxanne.
Yep, Henry able to get himself 6 fresh cards, giving Wayne just 2 cards, and was able to develop that Sobble, but will only have 1 Shady Deal available, and that's if he's able to draw one with that low hand size. Henry is going to take at least 3 prizes this turn. Actually, he will be taking 3 prizes this turn because he'll certainly quick shooting and then finish off the active and put himself 1 attack away here. So let's see how else he can develop his board.
Yeah, that's going to be very, very useful. The quick shooting is going to be huge. That's why I loved so much seeing that boss's orders last turn, because it meant that there was no, whereas before Wayne was keeping Palkia in the active to force an attack, now it doesn't matter. You can put it in the active, but Henry's just going to quick shoot it and force you to bring up something else anyway, so it really is irrelevant at that stage. So all we've got here is we've got Henry with the Palkia. I mean, what would be ideal here is more gusting and KOing, but we know that's not an option. For the rest of the game, Henry is just attacking into what's active. And if Wayne knows this, then he can maybe try and tank a hit with Palkia. He can give up some single prize attackers and make Henry really work for this. Turn it into a free prize win rather than a 1 prize win, for instance.
And
a free turn win.
Yeah, Henry saved by his prize cards from that quick shooting, able to pick up Quick Ball. Now he can get his backup Palkia because the Roxanne didn't help him out. That's huge. So now, even if his Origin Form Palkia is knocked out, he'll have a route to get 2 more energy on the following turn with a Melanie turn attach play. So really big hits from the prize cards for Henry there, who is now simply going to Training Court attach to the Origin Form Palkia V-Star. In the active, can announce a big subspace swell and take 1 additional prize card, going 1 away from tying up this series.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. Henry is really doing well in this second game, playing it perfectly, setting up these prizes. Really disadvantaged because of the lack of gusting, but absolutely navigating this beautifully. With gusting, this will be a very different situation. You can just KO that Ice Rider and that's it, game over. It's not the option here. Can Wayne survive a hit with this Origin Form Palkia? Because that would give him 2 extra turns to try and win, which could be huge, but does need to take 3 prizes to do so, which is, it really feels like Wayne is on the back foot here. You need a single prize KO and a 2 prize KO, and you really need to do it on consecutive turns.
Yeah, I didn't quite spy the entire hand. The Capacious Bucket is going to grab a couple water energy. I know there was a choice belt in hand as well. So if that 3rd card isn't either a supporter or a way to Drizzile, I don't think there's a means of attacking here for Wayne. And I think Henry will just be running away with the series if that's the case.
I mean, if Wayne misses this attack, then I'm willing to bet it is very much all over, and we're going to be going.
Oh, it is a Drizzile.
Oh, well, that changes everything.
Can we Melanie here? That's going to be the big question.
There's definitely a Melanie in the deck. I saw it on the last search.
Okay, so as long as there's access to Melanie, there's going to be an attack launched here. I'm not sure if there's enough damage in play to get the knockout. We are going to see the Shady Deal here.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's got to be for the Melanie, because that's the... Oh, no!
Maybe Roxanne, so doesn't have access, or that attack isn't enough damage to deal the finishing blow here. So we are going to see the Roxanne disrupt Henry down and try and make life awkward to finish off the game. It's a role reversal where the Roxanne is now going to be punishing Henry at last. And Wayne, although won't be launching an attack, is hoping to tank a hit himself and try and just be on the offensive on a future turn.
Yeah, but the thing is, with Henry's got that quick shooting, Henry's got a Palkia ready. It's if there's no KO coming down here, Henry, even if he can't win the game, is going to be able to do a lot of damage this turn.
Right.
So that is going to be absolutely huge, and it looks like Wayne is just going to be passing. And remember, there's still 3 prizes to take. 1 KO is not going to be enough here.
Let's see if Henry can piece things together. I believe we're just looking for a choice belt to get over the line. There's only 3 bench Pokemon for Wayne here.
Correct.
Going to see the Training Court at the very least for Henry. He's going to take his time. He knows he's in a very strong position. And as you say, even if he can't take the win this turn, simply by evolving and getting that turn attachment already puts his mind at ease here, that he's going to be in a much better position.
There's a choice, but you've got to imagine a quick shooting.
Quick shooting active. So he's still just shy, but he's putting himself in range, right?
I believe this is in range of a quick shooting. So we've got 8 bench Pokemons, 1/6. I think that's 220, 250 plus a quick shooting.
Again.
Should be literally exactly 10. For the second time, exactly 10 away. But of course, we know there's quick shooting. So Henry doesn't need any energy next turn.
Yeah, this is checkmate, I think.
This is as good as checkmate. Because Wayne can actually gust and KO that quick shooting in Teleon. But anything he puts, well, and then anything he puts active gets KO'd immediately by Henry, and we do see Wayne realizes that, and that looks like a win for Henry, and we're going to be heading off to game 3. We are not done yet.
Yeah, really exceptional stuff from Henry there. Some heads-up prize-taking mid-turns, always a great thing to see.
Oh, yes.
You look at your hand, you say, that's not good enough, let me just grab a couple more over here. And of course, he used that Hisuian heavy ball earlier on in the game, so he was fully aware of his outs there, allowing him to seal up a really nice game, and a very early quick shooting coming into play, partly because he prized his Sword and Shield in Teleon, but it meant that, hey, I may as well get this and get some value, and he really used that very nicely. Very crafty plays. It's a very mathy matchup where you're both trying to stay in and out of range in different moments, but the Inteleon allows you to really get creative.
It really does, and it's a card that used to be played a lot more. It used to really be
essential, right?
Yeah, essential to a lot of strategies, and nowadays it tends to be played as a cheeky little one-off in some Inteleon decks, but not all. And I think what we saw there is how it can be absolutely crucial in some games. You know, 2 of Henry's KOs were of the 3 he took, or at least 4 of the prizes, were only made possible because of that quick shooting Inteleon. Now, we do have a Drizzle and that Radiant Greninja's prize, and we know how good Radiant Greninja is. Yeah,
Henry does play the Hisuian heavy, so he might be able to get that at a decent time. Is also going to get the benefit of a mulligan here in the 3rd game. Wayne does have his own tricks up his sleeve. He has the Leon, which we didn't quite see in that 2nd game, but it was certainly on his radar. Also has those choice belts. Couple awkward mulligans, not ideal when you're going into this 3rd game, but at least he's going to be going first here.
And Henry's had a pretty bad start, game 1 and game 2. Henry is yet to actually have a good start. But starting off with an extra 2 cards from mulligans, and, you know, Henry's got to be thinking, I can't keep drawing this badly. I've tested this deck. I know it's more consistent than this. You know what? Game 3 is where it's at. And you've got to think, if Henry has a really good start, Henry's going to be able to... Well, it's going to be nice to be able to play this a little bit differently. We at least, it looks like, have a Dialga to start. A Palkia to start. So that is going to help against an Ice Rider. Hey, Greninja's in both prize cards.
Wayne will be kicking off this 3rd game then with an Ice Rider Calyrex V as his active Pokemon. Henry has the Origin form Palkia V. I'm going to see a benched Sobble for Wayne, also eyeing up an Ultra Ball. Discarding Roxanne early on here. Doesn't have many water energy in his hand. I think that's something that's massively lacking.
That really is. And then Wayne, like most players, only plays a single copy of Roxanne, and Henry's going to know that, or at least highly suspect it. So that means that's going to change the way Henry thinks about the mid to late game here, knowing that Roxanne isn't such an issue. We saw Wayne playing around the Roxanne in the previous game. That might not be, well, it's not going to be an issue for Henry here. What is going to be an issue is that there's only 7.5 minutes left. We are in game 3. An early ties in the World Championship. This is too big a tournament. There's 8 rounds today. You can't well, you can take early ties, but it just makes life so much more awkward going through the event.
Yeah, it's almost a loss. It's not quite exactly a loss like it is or was yesterday, but it still doesn't feel great. You really need to accumulate as many match points as possible. So we'll see if we can get some turbo games in here. Henry is eyeing up his first turn options, already has access to Sobble, has some water energy and a quick ball as well. Won't, unfortunately, be able to get a Radiant Greninja early on here. That's probably in his mind already, but it's not going to be available, unfortunately. So we'll have to settle for maybe another Origin Form Palkia here.
He is going to be a little bit disappointed. The Radiant Greninja is one of the downsides of these Radiant Pokemon. They're limited to 1 copy in your deck, so if it's prized, and you are not having it till you can get it out. It's why Hisuian Heavy Ball, one of the reasons at least, has become a real one-off staple in a lot of decks, because you need access to these. We've seen so many games already this weekend that have been decided because of Radiant Greninja. It's been a been an absolutely huge card throughout the weekend. But Henry's still got access to Sobble, still got access to those Origin form Palkia. You've got to imagine that Radiant Greninja is going to be here at some point, and when the Hisuian Heavy Ball comes out, you know Henry's going to just make an absolute beeline for it. So we get a second Palkia, and we're going to see some Sobble hit the board as well.
I wonder if we'll see any turn attachment. Now that you know that there's no option for Radiant Greninja, it feels like a reasonable choice. Does choose to go active, and is going for a boss's orders to maybe slow things down for Wayne. And we are going to see a Rule the Region here to end Henry's turn, grabbing a Stadium out of his hand. It's essentially just deck thinning for him, to be honest.
Yep. I kind of love it, though. You don't see Rule the Region very often.
No.
So even though it's not a particularly crucial attack, I like seeing the attacks you don't usually see.
Yeah, I mean, it's got such an epic name for such
name
a mediocre effect. It's some nice hyperbole there, but regardless, we do move over to Wayne, who now has the Shady Deal on his side. Will he be able to launch any attack this turn? Will he be able to piece together a Melanie, or will he be forced into an early V-Star power here?
I mean, they are both options. It's one of the things these water decks do so well between the V-Star Power, Melanie, Raihan, although obviously that's only after a KO.
Yeah.
There are plenty of options to accelerate energy. I mean, we've got things like Frostlass and Frostmoth, which these decks don't even play because they can accelerate water energy in multiple different ways without them. So, you know, having these two energy attackers, it really is quite nice. You've got options for that extra little bit of energy, and it really does make a big difference. So I think Wayne can get an attack off if he wants to. The question really becomes, do you want the attack, or would you rather just set up your board pressure and go for bigger attacks later?
Yeah, and Wayne is slightly missing a step, but was able to grab the Irida in the end and does opt for another Ice Rider V, as well as a Capacious Bucket. Just has a couple cards in hand as well. I'm not certain of an easy route here for him to actually attack, unless he's holding on to possibly a Quick Ball or an Ultra Ball here. Does already have Melanie in hand, but he's already just used that Irida. I'm not sure if he's actually launching much of an attack here.
No, I mean, Radiant Greninja would be great here. That would be really useful. It's not an option, so it does look like, obviously, you go for the Irida. That means Melanie's off the table, one supporter per turn. So it looks like we're going to bench the Ice Rider.
It's another Rule the Region.
Another Rule the Region.
Man, it's the most I've seen this for a long time.
This might be the first time it's ever happened back-to-back with all the testing games played. So, I mean, and it's the same stadium that Henry's got. So there is a question here. Do you want to play it so it doesn't clog up your hand, or do you just want to use it as fodder?
Yeah, let's see how Henry wants to react to this. Wayne has got a sort of middling bench size, but certainly in range for Henry if he does go as wide as possible, and also even weaves in Choice Belt. It is a possibility for him to get a KO here. But Henry's hand still doesn't look too hot, I don't think.
No, he's got a bit of slow start, and we're down to 3.5 minutes remaining. We do need to keep an eye on the clock here. Nobody's taken a prize. Nobody's even launched an attack yet that does anything other than find a stadium card. So that means that we are a little bit short on time here, and this does look like it might end in a tie unless one of these players can really start pushing things, and they've got to be aware of it at this stage. They've played enough games. Your internal clock goes off at some point and tells you, hang on a second, I've got to be a little bit faster here. So we do see the attack from your Origin form Palkia V-Star, but it's not getting a KO, not even just it's on the regular V. So yeah, fine, you get to do 160 damage, that's lovely. It's not enough.
No, it does put the pressure on Wayne a little bit here, who also had like a fairly subpar turn. I believe they do have access to there you go, the shiny Inteleon, allowing him to deal a bunch of times. So we'll see how he wants to navigate this. I imagine in this scenario you want to find some discard fodder for your Melanie for support of a turn. So I imagine that's going to be a piece of the puzzle here.
Yeah, you've got to think that's going to be one of the things they're going for. I mean, at this stage, you just need attacking. There comes a point where you can't just keep setting up, and essentially, if you don't start attacking, you are not going to have time to win, no matter how good your setup is. So maybe you go for, I mean, an Ice Rider this turn would be great. Get a one-hit KO on that Palkia V-Star. Really put Henry just completely on the back foot. Almost ignore your own Palkia and just hope, because there's no V-Star power being used here. So you've got to kind of discard 2 water energy to do the big attack with Ice Rider, but you're probably not getting return KO'd. So if you can get one of those attacks off with a V-Star power, one of those attacks off with an attachment and a Melanie, Wayne could actually string Ice Rider attacks together and win quite quickly here. But you got 1.5 minutes, and then you got the +3 turns. Whoever's turn it is when time runs out is turn 0. And then you got 1 for your opponent, 2 for you, 3 for your opponent. That's it. Game is over. And if we haven't decided a winner, if nobody's met a win condition, we end in a tie.
Wayne is certainly taking their time here. A good amount of options again. When there's Melanie, when there's turn attachment, when there's the potential to even V-Star power, there's all sorts of attacks that could be launched on this turn. Could even be eyeing up at one point the Hisuian Heavy Ball to try and even weave in their own Radiant Greninja. But instead it's going to be double Evolution Incense here.
Looks like it.
So that means he's certainly got his eye on the Ice Rider.
Gotta think so. And I mean, honestly, you need the choice belt. The choice belt's huge. But if you've got access to the choice belt, all you need to do here is just V-Star power, don't muck about, get the 2 energy on there. I mean, you could even put 3 energy on there if you've got that much in your discard. And then, you know, potentially chain attacks.
So we have the turn attachment, and then we can pay retreat into the Ice Rider, and then Melanie could be your supporter. And then if you need to, you could still V-Star power. Oh, you would have to, because you're going to have to attach to retreat if you want that. But you're not getting maximum value, but it does have the choice belt. It would be a lot of tempo.
I like this. I want this. And then you Melanie next turn and turn attach. So I'm fully in favor of this. And I am an overly aggressive player when I play. I'm fully aware of this. But
why not, right?
This is my play. This is what I would be doing. And then next turn I'm looking for the Melanie and I'm looking for the turn attachment. We have hit zeros though. So it depends who's turn 0. If Wayne's got 2 more turns, would need 2 2-prize KOs. And the problem is when you're relying on Melanie, you cannot Melanie and Boss's orders. But Wayne does play cross switcher, but Wayne has no Sobble or Drizzle to evolve in Shady Dealings. Right. So it is going to be a long road. It's going to be a lot to ask for Wayne to win this game.
Yeah, Wayne is very limited in what he can achieve next turn, locking himself into the Melanie. And we'll see how Henry really wants to react. That will give us a good indication whether or not we are into that turn 0, because if we are, Henry's probably just going to start grabbing as many 1 prizes as possible and just start spamming them onto the board and try and get that Manaphy down so he can't suffer multiple KOs, and trying to evolve up into that V-Star as quickly as possible. Maybe some stalling Boss's orders plays. Basically, he'll give up on attacking at this point if he knows we're in time.
Yeah, we have had confirmation Henry is turn 0. We have been told that. So Henry's got the end of this turn and 1 more. Wayne's got 2 turns. And the question is whether Wayne can win the game in those 2 turns. Honestly, if I'm Henry here, see, it's awkward. Ideally, what you want is bench 2 single-prize Pokemon, including a Manaphy, and that kind of guarantees Wayne can't win the game. Now, we know Wayne doesn't have access to Radiant Greninja, but Henry doesn't. There's some clues that he might not have access to, but if you can protect your bench and not put another 2-prize Pokemon down, it becomes literally impossible for Wayne to win the game in 2 turns. That's all we really need here, and I think this is what Henry's going for. We're actually going to see a keep calling here just to get more single-prize Pokemon on the bench. Honestly, if Henry's able to get a Manaphy, that's game.
Yep, we'll see if Wayne can try and take 2 prizes on this turn. I think that's kind of what he has to do, but there's no real raid to Radiant Greninja at all, so I imagine this should lock things up as a tie in this first round.
He could Hisuian Heavy Ball, but you're asking a lot at this stage. I mean, we would have to get a Hisuian Heavy Ball.
I mean, we've spent the V-Star power, so the Radiant Greninja is not bursting onto the scene, unfortunately. And it doesn't have enough turns to manually get there, so it is just going to be the Ice Rider. I think we needed to see Melanie hitting like the other cross switcher there to have any hope, where you just knock out the Palkia.
That would have
maybe
to be
get towards Echoing Horn, but it's just going to be a Rider the High King for a 1-prize knockout, and Henry can simply pass now.
Yeah, I mean, Hisuian Heavy Ball for the Greninja would have been to see extra cards to try and get towards that cross switch and not for the attack. It was a very, very long shot. I'm willing to admit that, but unfortunately, Wayne took a single prize. He's only got 1 more turn remaining. This is going to end in a tie at this stage. Neither player has the time to actually win the game. There is no way Wayne is able to take enough prizes, unfortunately, to win the game. So there's no free prize turn coming. Henry's not taking 6 prizes in 1 turn, and we do end with a tie. Wayne and our defending world champion Henry ended at 1 game each, and they start their world championships with a tie.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious to say it's not the best, it's not the worst to have a tie. I think on reflection, the way both players drew, you pretty much just take that on the chin.